authentic tasting one.
Coming up on See You at USC, the owner of the Dog Cafe, Sarah Wolfgang, is in studio, and she brought a few dogs. You won't want to miss this one, so stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of See You at USC. Tonight we have a very special guest, the owner of the Dog Cafe, Sarah Wolfgang. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Of course. So first off, a dog cafe. What is that? It's the first one here in the United States, so I'm sure a lot of people don't know. What is it?
Yeah, so the Dog Cafe is essentially a halfway house for a lot of shelter dogs that really have nowhere to go. We bring them out of the shelter, provide them with the medical care and the rehabilitation they need in order for us to provide them and prepare them for their forever homes.
So now you started the Dog Cafe. What inspired you to bring the Dog Cafe to LA?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually grew up in Korea, and there's so many dog cafes all across Korea. And I got really involved with the animal rescue work there, and when I moved here, I visited a shelter and realized that it's so different the way the shelters are run in Korea and the way the shelters are run here.
Really?
And so the shelters in Korea are run by individuals and they're privately run, and so the dogs kind of have free roam. They're not kenneled up, they're not caged up. They kind of integrate with each other, and you're able to kind of see the dogs in their true light, their true personality, as opposed to them being kenneled and caged up, where, you know, a dog might be in shelter shock, or they might kind of get a little bit nervous when they're in a shelter environment. So you're not able to truly see their personality. And so when I moved here, I realized that and thought that a dog cafe would be a great way to kind of showcase these dogs that are less likely to get adopted.
Right.
And show their true personality so that we can find forever homes for all dogs.
So now in Korea, are the dog cafes there kind of like what you're doing and as like a halfway house for these animals?
Yeah, so dog cafes are actually a little bit different in Korea. They don't bring in rescue dogs. They do bring in puppies, and they're usually brought in from puppy mills. So unfortunately, they actually live out their whole lives at these dog cafes. And it's not the best situation for any dog. And so we thought of a way to kind of combat that issue too, which would have been to bring in shelter animals and then provide them with the halfway house so that we could also bring in dogs that needed to be brought in and then rehabilitate them and then also get them adopted out.
It's so interesting to me that you were saying how dog cafes are just so popular in Korea.
Yes.
Why do you think they're so popular there? And this is the first one here in the U.S.
I think initially there was a lot of issues with people trying to open them, and unfortunately there's just so many health regulations that need to be met that aren't easily met if you're trying to combine dogs and food. It's actually the health department's worst nightmare. And so I think a lot of people had issues with that when trying to open up their own cafes. But we were able to find a way around that and then open one here. Dog cafes are just super popular in Korea because everybody lives in an apartment. It's really hard to own your own dog, and so people want to interact with dogs, and because they're not able to, I think that's how the idea kind of came to be in Korea. But in America, again, lots of people have houses, big yards, and so they're able to own dogs, but there's still so many dogs that end up at shelters, so we wanted to find a way to kind of help ease that situation.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you're so passionate about animals. When did that all start for you? How old were you when you realized that was what you wanted to do?
I think from a really young age, I've always been slightly obsessed with dogs. My mom used to tell me that I would actually run up to dogs, and she would have to catch me before I got bitten or anything like that. But I've always had an immense connection with dogs. I like dogs occasionally more than I like people. And so
They're always there for you.
they are.
They never let you down.
And they're so genuine.
They are.
Everything they do, it's because they want to do it, not
Yeah.
because, they think they need to do it or anything like that. But I've always had a connection with dogs, and growing up, my parents actually never let me have any dogs. And so I'd actually visit all these dog cafes. And that's kind of how I got my pet fix and my dog fix. And later on, I learned about dog cafes and how their dogs were actually brought in from puppy mills, and it wasn't the best situation for dogs. And so that's how I got really involved with the animal rescue work in Korea. And from there, I learned a lot from this guy named Tim. He actually became the president of an RSPCA in Australia.
Okay.
So he influenced me a lot with the animal rescue aspect of things. It taught me a lot of things that I didn't know initially, that I needed to know, that really kind of fueled the fire and the passion for animal rescue work.
What does that mean? What kind of animal rescue work were you doing when you were in Korea?
Yeah, so there's a shelter called Daejeon Paws, and the shelter unfortunately was on a green belt. So it was privately owned by this old lady. She had about 500 dogs on maybe an acre of land or so, a little less even. And she was on the green belt, and the government was forcing her to leave. They were like, you can't have these dogs on this green belt. It's not good for the environment, so and so. And so they asked her to leave. And that was like the first big thing that I did with animal rescue work, was to try to relocate these dogs and also find a place for them to go to. And we were thankfully able to find a shelter that would accept about 200 or so dogs. The rest of the 300 we were able to find homes for.
Wow. Is that difficult, trying to find homes for these animals? Because that's a big commitment for anyone to take them in.
Definitely. So it is occasionally difficult, but I think when you find the right person, you just kind of know, even as a rescuer, the way you see the dogs interact with this person, it kind of shows you that that person might be a good owner for the dog, and so it's not too hard.
How do you know when you are trying to find the right match for an animal? How do you know if that owner is going to be, treat the animal right and be a forever home for them?
So when it comes to our store and our dogs and our policy, we have a very invasive dog adoption process, and that's to ensure that our dogs obviously go to the best homes possible. And that starts off with the customers and the people that are interested in adopting a dog, potential adopters, coming to the store, meeting the dogs, and then from there we actually sit one-on-one with the people that are interested in adopting a dog, and then talk to them about their lifestyle so that we have a good idea of what they're like, and then we try to match them up with dogs that we think would fit their lifestyle. So we don't obviously want somebody that's more of a couch potato to adopt an extremely active dog, because then the dog would ruin everything because they're not getting enough exercise. And so it's really important for us to match people up with the dog that we think would best fit their lifestyle. And then we put them through an adoption application process, and that really tells us a lot about that person too. And so the more people are willing to take the time to fill out the application, certain words that they use, if they use a word like it or something like that, even though that they know the dog's a he or she, we know that they're not as emotionally invested in adopting the dog. We also conduct house visits.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's very little things. We do get a bit.
Well, you want to be picky.
Yeah,
we're extremely picky. You want them to be in the best home possible. So does that mean if someone refers to it as an it, then you guys kind of...
We get a little bit wary, so that's kind of like a, let's rate on. It is a bit of like a red flag for us, like a yellow flag at least.
Yeah.
Not saying that if you call an animal it's a bad thing, but we just find that people that are genuinely interested in a lifetime commitment of 10 plus years are more likely to use he or she as opposed to an it if they've already met the dogs and they already know that the dog is a he or she. Just little things like that.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because at the Dog Cafe, you don't have to adopt a dog. You can just go and hang out, right?
Yeah.
And then so people, if they fall in love with them, is that when they can decide if they want to adopt?
Yeah, so you don't have to necessarily fall in love, but you can come in if you're not interested in adopting a dog. Obviously, you don't have to adopt a dog. We're there to provide people with their dog fixes as well, because we don't want people going into shelters adopting a dog on a whim, because it is a little cheap to adopt a dog at a local shelter, and then bringing the dog back or letting it loose just horrific situations like that. So we want to offer people that aren't able to own dogs in their apartments, or even students that live in dorms that can't have dogs, to come in and meet the dogs and really get their dog fix as well.
So what is your most popular, I guess you could say, group that comes to the Dog Cafe? Is it students?
Yeah, I would say we mainly get students, but that's kind of like a one-time customer thing, or like a once-a-month customer thing. We do have die-hard fans of our dogs, people that come in every single week for multiple hours a week, and that seems to be a little bit more of the older crowd, people that have had dogs that lost their dogs, unfortunately, or people that have busy schedules but have little big gaps in their schedules where they just want to spend the whole day with the dogs. And it's so fun to see because the dogs return the favor too. Like if you come in multiple times a week or you come in multiple times a month, the dogs will actually start recognizing you, and then they'll just crowd to you, and you kind of have all the dogs the whole hour. So it's pretty awesome.
How many dogs do you get to sit with when you? So how does it work for someone who doesn't know?
Yeah.
Do you go into an area and then you just sit with dogs?
So it's actually a big open area. We've customized the space to kind of fit the dog's needs as opposed to people needs. And so it is a little bit boring to look at, I guess, because it's very kind of an open space, and again, that's just to make sure that it's easy for us to clean and keep the area sanitary. And so it's a little bit bland, but we have couches where people can sit on the couches, and the dogs will occasionally jump on the couches or even jump into your lap and take a nap on your lap. And then we always kind of ask people to sit on the floor and get down to the dog's eye level so that the dogs feel comfortable approaching you as well.
That's one thing that I wanted to ask you. What can you give some tips for people? Because oftentimes you'll see people just go up to dogs and start petting them. What's the best way to approach a dog, or even when you're at the dog cafe?
Yeah, definitely. So the very first thing I would recommend anybody trying to approach a dog is to obviously ask the owner first, you know, is this dog friendly? And just to get a little bit of basic information on whether or not it's okay to even pet that dog. When you're coming to our store, obviously all of our dogs are friendly and they all want to be petted. But just approaching a dog in general, you definitely want to kind of bend down. I would say a side approach is usually the best, because when even if you're bent down, you're hovering over a dog, sometimes that can seem a little intimidating for a dog, and a dog might get a little bit defensive. And that's no fault of the dogs. It's just dogs are, you know, they're protective animals. They do come from a lineage of wolves. So you just really want to get down low, a side approach, and usually an underhand, and allowing the dog to sniff your hand. And sometimes dogs will even walk into your hand, allowing you and telling you that they want to be petted. If they don't want to be petted, usually like a little tiny pet on the chest is the way to go, and then slowly making your way over the head is the best thing.
Well, I'll have to try these tips when we bring the dogs
definitely.
out. And then you can coach me through it, and we can show the right tips. Now, all the dogs that you get, do you go out and pick these dogs that you want to bring to the Dog Cafe?
Yeah, so we actually work really closely with a lot of the volunteers at the local shelters. They know what we do, they love what we do, and so we'll go to the shelter, we'll contact them, we'll be like, hey, we're on our way. Do you have any dogs that you might would recommend coming to our store? And they'll recommend us a few dogs, and then we'll put the dogs through a trial period and a testing period. So we'll test the dogs to see if they're dog aggressive first at the shelter, to ensure that we can bring them in safely to our cafe, because obviously we want to ensure that all of our dogs at the cafe are safe first. So we can't bring in any dog aggressive dogs, and then we'll slowly integrate them into the pack. But the shelter volunteers do help us a lot with bringing in certain dogs.
Is it hard to find a dog that will get along with others?
It's semi-hard. It's hard sometimes, hard not other times. I think it's more hard when we fall in love with a dog and then find out that that dog is dog aggressive. That's a lot more harder, because we want to help this dog, we want to bring this dog in, we want to rehabilitate it, and then find its forever home, and then we dog test them, and then they're aggressive to dogs. Some dogs are they've just had bad experiences. So unfortunately, as they grow up, they become more protective of themselves around other dogs. Some dogs are reactive towards male dogs. Some dogs are reactive towards female dogs. It just kind of differs. It's like people. They're kind of like people, you know, we all don't get along with everybody. And so dogs always don't all get along with everybody.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Definitely.
And then I'm so excited because after the break, we're going to bring in the two dogs, and that'll be really fun, and we can check them out and show you some tips on how to best approach a new dog. Stay tuned.
Here's the story of a TV manager who had a team to help out with the station. There's HR, web, graphics, busy showrunners, and station operations. The TV manager needs a new assistant, and we welcome her along with a few more. There's programming, equipment, and promotions, and they have much in store. All the managers, we work together to make live TV the best it's ever been. We have many helpful students to assist us. That's the way we all became Trojan Vision. Trojan Vision, Trojan Vision. That's the way we became Trojan Vision.
Welcome back to See You at USC. I have Lily from the Dog Cafe, and Sarah Wolfgang, the owner of the Dog Cafe, is here with me. Thank you so much again for being on the show.
No problem.
So this is Lily.
That is
And we
Lily.
have one more. He's by our feet, smelling. They're so excited. Tell me a little bit about them.
Yeah, so Lily was actually dropped off to us as a stray. We don't know too much about her. She is a rat terrier mix, so she loves to sniff things. She loves to explore. She loves to kind of do things on her own, and she's extremely, extremely playful, and she does so well with other dogs.
She's so cute.
Lily!
So, as a rat terrier, is she calm? She likes to smell a lot?
No, so rat terriers are very energetic and they're very, very curious. Because she is a mix, she doesn't live by that description 100%, but she does embody a lot of those characteristics that rat terriers have. As you can see, she can't stay still.
Yeah, they're probably just freaking out about the new environment.
Yeah,
here.
they're like, so many things to smell.
So tell for our viewers who just joined us, what can you do when you get to the Dog Cafe? How does that process work?
Yeah, so we actually have a liability waiver form that everybody needs to sign in order to come on in. And we do, unfortunately, require everybody to be over the ages of 18 in order to come in. And then, what do you call it? And then you're more than welcome to order a drink. We do serve drinks, and then we actually have our dog area right next door. So you leave the cafe area, and then you go next door, and then you get to hang out with the puppers.
She just wants to smell everything. That's okay.
She's a little baby.
And remind me, this is Mac?
This here is Mac.
Okay.
Mac is a lab pit mix. He's about 5 months old. He's a gorgeous little boy. He's going to grow up to be at least 60 or so pounds. So he's going to be a bigger dog, 40 to 60 pounds. He was brought in with a litter of puppies. We do have his brother with us at the store still, and they can be adopted separately, but he's still looking for his home. He's a little more on the calm yet playful personality.
Now,
He's a great dog.
Do you only take in puppies?
No, so we actually have one really old dog, a few really old dogs. One of our oldest dogs is 15. His name's Oreo. He's completely blind. We kind of brought him in as more as a hospice dog. He loves to pee on people, so he wears a little belly band, and people are always like, "What's that? Does he have a bad back?" We're like, "No, he just likes to pee on everybody." And then we also have a dog named Shrek, who loves to sleep, and he acts kind of like a grumpy ogre all the time, and he's about 12, 13, and then we also have a larger senior dog, and she's about 12 too.
Do you have a favorite?
Moonshine. I hope they're not watching this though. Moonshine is absolutely my favorite. We say that she has fairy dust love. She's got this beard. Despite having a beard and looking like an old man, she's quite the young lady. She's the best dog ever though.
So what would be your advice for someone who comes into the store and wants to adopt, what do you tell them to look for?
Yeah, so we always want to emphasize lifestyle. A lot of people come in and they're like, that dog's cute, I want to take that dog home. And unfortunately, cuteness doesn't really translate into lifestyle. And again, if you have a more laid back lifestyle and you're more of a couch potato, we don't want anybody adopting like a dog with high energy, a dog that needs to be hiked every single day, because if you're gone and you're not at home, the dog might chew up your couch and then you're going to come home and you're going to be mad at the dog. But essentially, it's actually going to be your problem because you didn't give the dog enough exercise and stuff like that. So we really want to emphasize lifestyle if you're ever interested in adopting a dog, to choose the dog that best fits your lifestyle.
Yeah, I think they're loving the camera time right now.
Yeah, they are.
Mac is he's doing great right now.
He's like
settled in.
Is this angle good?
Lily wants to explore the table. So what's for you is the hardest part about starting your own business and starting up the Dog Cafe?
I think the hardest part was essentially we came into the idea of opening the Dog Cafe as kind of more a labor of love. And unfortunately, we just kind of met a lot of people that were into the novelty idea of things. And so they didn't really understand the fact that a lot of our dogs do come from local shelters. They do have pasts that we don't know about all the time. And so they can be a little more standoffish. So when you're coming to the Dog Cafe, you're not going to be trampled by puppies. All of our dogs, again, do have past. And so it's kind of like people, if you're not from the brightest of places, you're going to approach things a little more cautiously, and that's how our dogs approach people too.
Right.
But it's just how they are. But the cool thing about the Dog Cafe is a lot of times they actually grow out of that shyness too. So they're no longer afraid of people, and they can kind of be around people without being afraid of people. So we like to show the dogs that not all people are bad.
So have you had dogs that you took in who were really timid of people and other dogs, and have they changed?
Yeah, so we have, again, Moonshine. She's my favorite. We had her as a younger puppy, and she was actually adopted from the shelter when she was like a really young puppy. And then she was brought in by the police as evidence for an abuse case. So somebody called and reported her being abused by her current owners, and so the police confiscated her and then brought her to the shelter as evidence. And she was extremely, extremely afraid of people, and it took us about 3 people to catch her because we would have to corner her and then get her. But now she will actually jump into people's laps and sit in them and sleep in them. So she's really starting to understand that people aren't all bad.
Do you think that that's a great way to maybe we could consider having more dog cafes instead of shelters, so that dogs, because oftentimes when you do get a dog, they're timid when you bring them home, or they're confused. Would you want to grow the Dog Cafe into more than just one location?
Yeah, so I would really love to see more dog cafes open up across America, because I think it's a great way for dogs to not be stuck in kennels all day, for them to really interact with people, to understand that, again, not all people are bad. And we really do hope that in the future more dog cafes blossom all across America instead of shelters, because that would be a dream come true.
What for you was the hardest part about it?
The hardest part is, I would say, saying goodbye to the puppies. That's pretty sad.
They get adopted?
It's sad in the fact that we won't see them again. We do have adopters that'll bring the dogs in, which is so exciting, because then they recognize us even after months.
Yeah.
They'll come in and then they'll like get really crazy, they'll wag their tails, and they just love to see us. But it's always a little bit of bittersweetness seeing them go on to their forever homes, because you know that they're going on to the best possible homes. But at the same time, it's a little bit sad, because you're like, when am I going to see them again?
So how many dogs, how often are they adopted?
Yeah, so I would say we have about 2 adoptions a month, and that's, again, to ensure that all of our dogs go to the best homes possible. We don't allow them to be adopted out each time somebody puts an application in. We definitely take the time to ensure that all the dogs are going to the best homes.
So now with the
Lily.
she's going to you now. With the adoption process, I know you were talking about that earlier, but do you kind of look also how much the dog really connects with someone else?
Yeah, so that's very, very important for us too, to ensure that the dogs are also taking a liking to the people. So it's important for us to get a good vibe when people are adopting or interested in adopting, but it's also important for us to get a good vibe of that person. So for us to get a good vibe of that person and for the dogs to get a good vibe of that person.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about owning a dog?
That it's easy. You really have to commit to it. I say it's kind of like, especially if you're adopting a puppy, it's really kind of like having a kid because you have to be there. You have to be there all throughout the night. You can't go out and hang out with your friends. You have to be there to walk your dog in the morning. You can't sleep in, that kind of stuff. So it is a lot of work, a lot more work than people anticipate. So if you're interested in adopting a dog, but you're not interested in adopting or putting too much commitment into it, I would always say a senior dog is the best way to go because they're kind of like dog cats. Lily, that's not your water.
So cute.
So it is a lot of commitment owning a dog. So it's really important to prepare yourself and anticipate the type of commitment before actually bringing a dog home.
Now you guys are doing something new for USC students who want to go to the Dog Cafe. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're offering USC students a 10% discount as long as you bring your ID card with you, your USC ID card. Anytime, just come on in and we'll get you situated with the pups.
Is it just an hour? How long do you get to stay?
So it's about 55 minutes. We always ask that you do, if you are interested in coming in, to come in at least 15 minutes prior to the hour, and that's just to ensure that you get your full 55 minutes with the dogs.
Okay, that's awesome. Are you thinking about potentially having it longer so that students can maybe study while they're working with dogs or hanging out with them?
So we're actually offering, we will be offering in the future a pre-purchase, so you can purchase your tickets prior to and get a bigger discount, and that way you can come in, use our internet, and study while you hang out with the dogs, because dogs are a great stress reliever. So maybe you're studying that final exam and you just need a little bit of furry lovin'. We can provide that to you guys as well.
Now you were saying that you have about 14 dogs total at the Dog Cafe. So how often are you going to other shelters and looking for other dogs to bring back in?
Yeah, so we actually only go to the shelters whenever we have a dog adopted out. Whenever we have space available, we'll bring in a dog from the shelter. We obviously don't want to overcrowd our own kennel system, and so we want to ensure that every time a dog gets adopted out, we'll bring in a new dog.
Well, I know we're running out of time, but I want to play a short game, just ask you a few fun questions. So if you were any breed of dog, which one would you be that best represents you?
I would say Siberian Husky. I love going hiking, I love being outdoors, but at the same time, I like kind of staying at home by myself. They're great dogs. They definitely need their physical activities, but they're also great cuddle bugs. So if you love to sleep in, they'll sleep in with you. And
if you could do anything in the world, what would you want to do in terms of rescuing dogs?
Rescuing dogs? Oh my gosh.
More dog cafes?
More dog cafes, for sure. But there was this video a while back that had gone viral where there was like hundreds and hundreds of dogs on this private island, I believe. And then they just like opened a gate and all these dogs flooded. I thought that was like the coolest thing. I'd love to do that in the future.
That sounds amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. Unfortunately, we're out of time and I'm going to have to say goodbye to Lily. Of course, if you're a USC student, anyone, you can go to the Dog Cafe and hang out with Lily and Mac. Be sure to tune in to every weeknight here on Trojan Vision. You can get more episodes of See You at USC. Good night. She's so
watching Trojan Vision. For more of your favorite shows, check us out at trojanvision.com and like us on Facebook.
All right, it's been 5 hours since Trojan Vision stopped broadcasting to the greater LA area. Since then, everything's gone to hell.
Hey, turn that off. We need to take inventory. Where's the equipment key?
I thought Zane did that.
Well, Zane's dead, baby. Zane's dead.
And without Trojan Vision, everybody started getting really bored.